got herpes. Look, I got it from Nvidia. Let's talk about it. I may have herpes on my face, but you have herpes in your PC. Let me explain. It's time to stop buying gimped hardware. It is basically an STD at this point, boys. When you're buying a GPU like the 4060, right, has 8 gigs of VRAM and a paltry 128-bit bus with 270 gigabytes of memory bandwidth a second. Boys, it's not good. You know, we always talk about the VRAM, but the memory configuration is being nerfed on these modern graphics cards, not only on graphics cards, but like laptops, MacBooks. That's where these companies get you, is nerfing the memory interface. It is an STD. It is herpes, and it's sitting in your PC right now. But luckily, Silicon Steak is here to help you get through this hard time and kind of talk to you about my experience with 8GB graphics cards, because I did sleep with an 8GB graphics card at one point. I owned a 3060 Ti for over a year, and I think that's where I got this herpes from. You know, I'm not proud to admit it, but me and that graphics card got down for, you know, we settled for a little over a year. It was a great experience, I'm not gonna lie. I had a lot of fun with my 3060 Ti. It only had a measly 8GB of VRAM, but you know, I didn't mind. I saw through the flaws in the card. I looked at it and I thought it was just perfect until one day I tried to pick it up and run Resident Evil 2 Remake. I tried to run this game, things were going well. I was playing at 4K on my OLED, you know, my C1 OLED, 120 hertz 4K. I was getting actually 100 hertz at 4K using like a FSR 1.0 at the time, because this was years ago. And you know, I kind of liked it at the time. I thought it looked pretty good. And then I get to this one section in the game, and this is fairly early in the game after playing for an hour or so, and my FPS drops from 100 to 30 with stutters. All right, not cool, my dude. 3060 Ti, what are you doing to me right now? You are betraying my love for this graphics card. So this, you know, this was before I had my glorious 4080 with 16 gigs of VRAM. I only had a 3060 Ti, had a 256-bit bus, you know, so that was a good 256-bit bus. But the bad thing about it was the 8 gigs of VRAM, and that is why my FPS dropped from 100 to 30 in a blink of an eye. Essentially, my VRAM buffer filled up, and this was before people were talking about VRAM and all that, and it was a big issue. Obviously, people have been talking about VRAM for a long time, but this was before all the outrage over lack of VRAM kind of popped up. I learned it the hard way. I'm like, wow, my game is not working anymore. I had to turn down the resolution, I had to turn down textures, and it looked a lot worse. But I got through the game, you know, and I got my FPS back up, although it was a lot more blurry than I would like. And ever since that point, when I played with the 3060 Ti, you know, I thought it was a fluke. I'm like, this game's unoptimized. Like, 8 gigabytes of VRAM is enough. Keep in mind, this is in 2021, guys. And yeah, it was not enough, boys. I played another game, Far Cry 6, and same thing happened. Textures just were not loading in. When I tried Halo Infinite, same thing. Like, the 3060 Ti was not having it. So I upgraded from that 3060 Ti. I said, screw this, man. The 40 series was launched. The 4090 was just announced. And I typically buy graphics cards like right when they like just drop in value. So I was eyeing a 3090 from a mining company, 3090 Strix. I picked that bad boy up for $700 right when the 4090 was announced. And I had 24 gigabytes of VRAM, and I just loved it. I turned all my textures up to high. I used up to, you know, 17, 18 gigabytes of VRAM sometimes, even though I think it was just using more because it had more, because with my 4080, I never see any VRAM bottlenecks. Before you guys get in the comment section, you need to chill. I know there are games that use more than 16 gigs of VRAM. My personal games that I play, I'm not using more than 16 gigs. I don't turn on path tracing and stuff. I don't play all these games with tons of path tracing yet. They just aren't on my radar. But, you know, once I get a GPU that can destroy that, I will be playing those. So yeah, upgrade from my 3060 Ti to my 3090. I got 24 gigs of VRAM, turn all the textures back to high. I even go back to Resident Evil 2 Remastered, replay it again to show that game who's boss, and it used like 10, 11 gigs of VRAM. I'm like, I still got like 12 more, bro, so keep it coming. And it was a very nice feeling, guys. After my 3090, it was glorious. It had a glorious reign of about a year, maybe a year and a half or so, probably a year and a half. It was great. I love the 3090, except for one thing. The thing guzzled power. It would heat my whole room up like crazy, guys. I did overclock it, which maybe wasn't the best thing to do, but out of the box, it was actually underperforming, so I had to OC that thing. It was an Asus Strix model, so it wanted the juice, okay? And so it did use like anywhere from 400 to 450 watts, and that thing was cooking. Even at 350 watts, that 3090 Strix, the VRAM was overheating to 100, even all the way up to 110 Celsius on the VRAM. So at that point, I looked deep inside, and I saw another sort of disease coming out of my GPU, and this was one of cut corner-itis, right? Because on the 3090, for whatever reason, it was a Halo tier product, $1,500 graphics card. NVIDIA did not place proper cooling on the back side of the memory modules on the 3090. So basically, those chips just cooked. They cooked so hard. And they were getting to like 110 Celsius, those VRAM chips. And at that point, I decided I gotta sell this thing or it's gonna fry itself and it's not gonna work anymore, and then I'm gonna have no GPU. I'm gonna be integrated graphics, gang, and I'm not about that life. So I got rid of that 3090, sold it on Hardware Swap for $730, like a little bit more, I think, than I bought it for. And I picked up a 4080 Zotac off OpenBox Zotac store for $830 after shipping and tax, everything. And I thought like, oh, this is gonna be kind of a downgrade, in my STD ridden mind from NVIDIA coming before, like I was obsessed with VRAM. I went from that 3090 to this 4080. I'm like, oh, this is 8 gigabytes less VRAM. This is gonna suck, but I gotta do it or my GPU is gonna blow up. So I did it, and to my surprise, the 4080 slapped my 3090 around. On average in gaming, it was 40% faster in my testing. 40%, guys. And yeah, I love that. And also it used way less power. My 3090 was using 450 watts max OC, and my 4080 max OC was using like 280 watts. Like I didn't try to push the power a lot on my 4080. I just put up the clock speed and it didn't need more power. So yeah, my 4080 was actually a huge upgrade, 40% more performance, a little bit less memory bandwidth, but we have more cache on this GPU, frame gen, whatever. And then RTX, like ray tracing performance, is way better too. If the 3090 destroys the 4080, that would kind of suck, but I haven't noticed that in any application. I do video editing, I do gaming, I do AI rendering, like with Stable Diffusion, and I've never used more than my 16 gigabytes of VRAM on my GPU. It runs faster, it's more performant, it's way cooler. So it was a great upgrade. So that's something to think too, guys. Don't get so stuck on VRAM's the only thing that matters. This is the bit bus, and it needs to be this amount of memory bandwidth because, architectures can make a difference, right? TSMC 4 nanometer on the 4080 is way better than Samsung 8 nanometer on the 3090. Honestly, 8 nanometer was so garbage from Samsung. I'm glad I got off that 3090 die. But yeah, where were we going with this? Oh yeah, herpes. It made me realize how screwed over I got with that 3060 Ti, and now we see it gave me herpes. NVIDIA gave me herpes. It gave me a disease of disgust and hatred for low-end hardware. And this is exactly what NVIDIA wanted me to catch, all right? Because now I can never go back to low-end graphics cards. I've tasted the mountaintop with a 90 class. Sure, I'm on an 80 class now, but I assure you it feels very high-end with the way it performs. And I couldn't see myself going back to like a 4060 or something like that in my main rig. I could make do with that, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that I'm ever going to do. I would just stick on an 80 class for a while before I upgraded to a 60 class, right? So yeah, NVIDIA gave me the VRAM-itis herpes, and it's not cool. Now, what I'm saying to you guys is before you buy a low-end graphics card, just think, is this going to meet my needs? Is 8 gigabytes enough? And what people don't also talk about is how limiting the memory bandwidth on these cards can be. The RX 7600 also limits memory bandwidth with a 128-bit bus. People don't talk about this as much for AMD, but it's a problem. That card also has 8 gigs of VRAM, and it has a measly 128-bit bus. it has like only 270 gigs of memory bandwidth. And some people are like, I'll get the 16 gig version and play at 4K. I'm like, dude, you aren't playing at 4K with that little amount of memory bandwidth. Like, it's not going to work out great for you, dude. That's why I like art cards. They actually give you enough memory bandwidth and VRAM. So where it's like totally balanced, like as all things should be. And I really like how Arc is doing that. And, you know, it makes sense why Intel is doing that, because they don't have any higher end cards. They don't want to they aren't able to cannibalize anything because they don't have anything to cannibalize. But yeah, so just be careful when you're buying PC hardware, guys. Be careful, all right? Don't get the herpes like I did. I don't know if I can cure this thing with any cream or anything like that. Let me know. Does AMD come out with something that can cure this? Is Intel going to help me? Oh, it's on this side. Yeah, I totally know where it's at. It hurts. Ow. Ah. Herpes. Okay. I'm using this Blue Yeti mic today. I'm not using my lav mic because my wife took my laptop. Yes, I'm married. And I can't use my lav mic without my laptop. So that's why I'm using the Blue Yeti mic today. Hopefully the audio sounds pretty good. I have to kind of like lean up here and kind of like smooch on it a little bit. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. I think my voice sounds a little bit deeper when it's to the side like this. So, you know, keep it in your pants. I'm married, but let's continue with the show. Also, don't tell my wife about the herpes. That would be bad. But you got herpes in your PC. You need to evaluate your rig right now. Do you have an 8GB graphics card? Does it have enough memory bandwidth? What games are you playing? That last question is really important because, you know, 8GB of VRAM is actually more than enough for some of these older games I've been talking about that only use like 2 gigs and still look great. So just evaluate your rig, evaluate your purchasing decisions before you make them, especially if this 5060 is 8 gigs of VRAM. Do not pick that bad boy up. Even with memory compression voodoo, it's not going to be worth it, guys. I think it's just going to be worth it to get the card that you're going to be proud of, get the card that can play all the games that you want for at least 2 years, and then be happy and upgrade when you can. So what did we learn today? Well, not a whole lot. We just learned that I like to talk, really, and I have herpes. But the main thing is, you know, get a graphics card. It doesn't have to be the most high-end thing. Intel's actually offering us something that's great with the B580, 12 gigs of VRAM, enough memory bandwidth, that can play the games that you want. So look at the games that you want. Look at what resolution you want to play at. Make sure, based on benchmarks, you know, Tech PowerUp does amazing work with VRAM testing. And make sure that that GPU has enough VRAM to play at the resolution you want with the settings you want. And that's really it. Something else that I thought of is, like, if you want to buy 8GB graphics card, that's totally fine. I don't know if you should buy it new. Like, there's older 8GB graphics cards, like a 2080. If you can pick something up like a 2080 for $150, that is a great deal, guys. And think about it. Like, I think about this. Like, I sell PCs, and most of them have 8GB of memory. And that's just because, you know, that's the most affordable GPUs out there. And people aren't really willing to pay more, I found, than like $800 for a PC on Facebook Marketplace. I've sold a couple for $1,200, but that's where the max I can do, really. Was that your question? All right, let me rephrase this. I actually hit my head a lot of times this week, and it's not working out for my cognition here. A lot of you people in the comments are saying I'm uneducated, so thanks for that. I'm a grad student. Actually, I'm doing a thesis right now, so that's reassuring. This is what I've been thinking, man. Like, there's more games out there that require less than 8GB of VRAM than games that require more. There is probably a handful, maybe a couple dozen of games that use more than 8GB of VRAM. But the important part is the trend is heading in that direction. So all new games are going to require more than that. So if you want to play new stuff, it's very important. But if you're building a PC and you just want to experience the vast library of Steam and, you know, the PC Master Race, an 8GB GPU may not be that bad of a bet. But I don't think you should buy a new GPU like a 4060 or 5060 that has 8 gigs of VRAM. Just buy something older like a 2080, you know, Super or whatever. Yeah, that is my thoughts on this. Like, if you just want to play some older games, 8GB of VRAM is okay. Would you look at that? We passed 1,000 subscribers. Woohoo. I still have herpes, so this is bitter. This is a bittersweet moment. Have you gotten herpes from NVIDIA? Have you gotten herpes from AMD Or did you contract something even worse from Intel? Guys, let me know in the comment section down below. Silicon Sake, signing out.
He knows it all, no question too big, no detail too small. He's got the knowledge, he's got the skill. When he drops his take, the haters stand still. Fanboys can cry.